Hey guys, Al here, Vitalize Seed. I hope everybody's having a good day. I wanted to talk today about synergistic relationships and antagonistic relationships within the soil profile. So maybe you went and got a soil test and something shows up, some soil labs will say it's really high or it's really low or whatnot, and you're trying to understand, wow, how do I balance these things? And maybe you don't know that, certain things, and I'll highlight that later in the video, but as some nutrients go up, it's going to drive others down, right? And that's called an antagonism. Another way to describe this is a synergistic nutrient interaction means that the interaction between two or more nutrients has an increase in yield response. So let's just say that you're adding nitrogen and sulfur together, and that's driving yield upward. Within that specific situation, within that soil profile, it might drive yield depending on those situations and needs of the plant at that time. The reason that can be is one, just directly for the needs of the plants. Also, nitrogen and sulfur having a positive impact on protein synthesis within the plant, and of course driving yield response by reducing stress for that plant to create plant proteins. Antagonisms is the exact opposite. So I'll move my head here out of the way, but when the yield from the combined interaction of two nutrients is less than what would have been expected. So, maybe you're adding something to try to adjust pH, but you're actually driving something else out of the soil profile that's causing issues. Maybe if you only have, as an example, you only have high calcium limestone in your area, but you have really, really low CEC and magnesium already in your soil profile. So you're adding this high cal lime and it's driving so much magnesium out of your soil that your magnesium is now the lowest hole in the bucket, and it's actually reducing, although it's increasing your pH, you're actually reducing the plant response or yield because of that lack of nutrient in the soil profile. So I just kind of thought this chart was a good one. It's basically showing you that, factor A and factor B, and antagonism is showing a reduction. Then there's a stagnant response, which is you're adding something and nothing's happening as far as the yield. So this is directly correlated to yield. And then lastly, factor A and factor B are driving yield up, and that's called a synergistic response as far as plant nutrition specific to the plant, soil nutrition specific to the plant growth. And this is called the Mulder's diagram, and this has been around for quite a while. As you can see here, it's highlighted with green and also black dotted line for stimulation, which can also be synergistic relationships and or antagonisms. So as you can see, that there's a lot of antagonisms in the soil, and that's why people like Ag PhD Radio do such a wonderful job of explaining that if you're going to be in a situation, especially like row crop farming or something like that, where you're heavy on the inputs, you really need to understand what you are doing and how those interactions are going to happen and impact your soil profile, and also how that soil profile is going to impact your plant growth. As your calcium, for example, goes up, your magnesium goes down. And you can see this here as nitrogen goes one way, some of your micronutrients are impacted, phosphorus and zinc, phosphorus and iron, so on and so forth. So that's kind of your high level. Of course, then there's other factors in there such as biology and pH and everything else that we want to talk about. So what do you have to do when you get a soil test back and something's really, really high? Sometimes nothing. Sometimes just a little bit of research. So if you have a situation where something comes back and it's really, really high, oftentimes it's not a toxicity issue, or it won't be, but we do want to make sure, like if something comes back, let's just phosphorus for talking purposes, we'd want to make sure that, maybe there's some more zinc there to help move some of that phosphorus into the plant. We might want to make sure that get another sample done, make sure that we're not getting stratification or uneven distribution of phosphorus in the soil profile. We also might want to use more diversity. We might want to go into a situation where we are maximizing fungal networks in the soil to help solubilize a lot of that phosphorus to get taken up, and so on and so forth. You're probably not going to see situations with nitrogen really high because it's a very mobile nutrient, but certainly if you're putting on N, and never looking at your micronutrients, as you can see with some of the antagonisms, you could be certainly driving your micronutrients out of that soil profile or binding them up to where they are not going to be adequate enough for maximum yield. So those are some of the things that you might want to keep in mind. Liebig's law of the minimum, right, is you can't achieve your greatest yield without filling the lowest hole in the bucket.
So that's kind of a general idea, and we can do a lot of this and make a lot of this more available through soil biology and systems like the 1-2 system that Vitalize Seed promotes. But I still think it's really good to take good, solid soil samples. And if you don't know, question, send an email to a lab or contact us at Vitalize Seed. And if we don't know, we'll certainly get you guys the answer. So check us out at vitalizeseed.com. And if you like this stuff, please share, subscribe, and follow along. I hope you all have a safe and enjoyable spring planting season.